Okay. If you have any doubts, queries, then please you can ask in this call only. Do not hold yourself for asking. Okay. And let's keep this session as interactive as possible. Okay. So first of all, what is KYC? Do anyone know? Adrech, Neha, or Divya?
It's like I know, I think just the regular type that we just get to know the client that we're trying to onboard on our company.
Yes, correct. So first of all, KYC is nothing but to identify and verify the client before onboarding or before doing any transaction with that client. That's the first thing. Second thing, it's a regulatory requirement as well. So different regulators of different countries ask the investment banks to perform the KYC before doing any transaction. Okay, that's the reason the investment banks perform the KYC to know their customer, like with whom they are dealing, if that those companies or customers are legitimate or fake, or from what are the business of those customers, if it's legitimate or not, or are they doing any fraudulent activity, or are they doing any money laundering. That's the reason they perform KYC before doing any transaction. Let it be any transaction, but the investment bank has to do KYC on those customers. It may be companies, the partnership, the trust, the charities, or it can be individuals as well. Okay, so these are the purpose to perform the KYC on the companies and the individuals. Now there are different types of the due diligence. Due diligence means nothing but to perform the KYC. So there are different types of KYC. So whenever any company or any customer comes to investment bank for any transaction or to open the account, the investment banks perform certain due diligence on that customers based on the risk rating. Okay. So there are three types of due diligence which is mentioned here, which is nothing but there are three types of KYC. First one is simplified due diligence, which is SDD, and the investment banks takes this approach for very low risk clients, like if the company is listed on the stock exchange or if the company is regulated by the regulators. So in India, the regulator is SEBI. So any company who is regulated by SEBI, those companies are treated as very low risk to the investment banks. And for the listed companies in India, we have Bombay Stock Exchange, National Stock Exchange. For US, it is New York Stock Exchange. For UK, it is London Stock Exchange. So if any company who is listed on stock exchange of different countries, then the investment bank treat those customers as low risk. And the reason for is that those customers are already listed or regulated by the regulators or exchanges who is managed by the governments only. That's the reason the different investment banks consider those countries, those companies as low risk. And for that reason, they do collect a minimum documents requirement for those customers. Okay. Are you getting me or no? Any doubt in this? Don't worry about this. When we will do some live cases, then you will get to know more about this. Like what's the difference? Why do investment bank classify KYC in different steps? Okay. So we have this tool. So under risk assessment, once you update the all these requirements, maybe you will get the access of this tool after 5 or 6 sessions. After that, you can do some cases on this. Here you will get that due diligence level. So Whatever details you will update in the KYC tool, that tool will automatically show you what due diligence is required on the clients, if it's STD or CDD or EDD. So based on the details which you update in the KYC tool, then the KYC tool automatically shows you what due diligence types you need to perform based on the certain requirements which you have updated in the tool. Okay. Now this
Yes, got it.
okay, sure. Now the second type is CDD, customer due diligence. So again, it is performed on low risk client and medium risk clients. Based on the information which you have updated in the tool, it will give you the risk rating plus the due diligence level. So these customers mostly are private companies, but those are not listed or regulated. These are private companies or carries low risk or medium risk. Like they are operating in any medium risk countries. That's the reason the risk rating is medium or low. But those are not listed and not regulated. Then comes to EDD, the enhanced due diligence. It is required for high risk entities. So when the risk rating will be high for any customer, if they are doing business in any high risk countries like Afghanistan, Pakistan, or you can say Russia, Zimbabwe. So these countries are considered as high risk. So if any company, any client is incorporated in any high risk country or doing business in any high risk countries, then investment bank consider those clients as high risk. Apart from the country, there are other factors as well. So if any company is doing business in any high risk industry, like manufacturing the war weapons or doing business in the precious metals or doing business in mining. So there are different types of risk industries which are considered as high risk, like any cash intensive business, like restaurant, where there are more cash transactions are happening. So those businesses as well are considered as high risk in the KYC. So if anyone is doing business in those industry, then the investment bank consider those as a high risk. Apart from that, if we identify any risk in the screening, like if you identify any PEP sanction or adverse media, then so those clients are considered as high risk. But we will come to know about screening in the last stages of the training. Okay. So as of now, just remember the risk factors are country, the industry, business, and the entity type as well. Okay. Team, if you are not understanding anything, then please let me know. Adri, Divya, Neha. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Now in KYC itself, there are different processes like onboarding. So if any new client comes in and if the investment bank is opening their account, that process, specific for that process, we call it as a onboarding. So in this, the client is new, the gathering customer information during the account opening process. So it's a totally a new client. And in that new client, we are doing we are gathering the information and documents, like we are performing KYC on that client. Then we call at specific to that process, we call it as an onboarding process. And then the second process is periodic review and regular review. So once any investment bank onboards the client, then as per the risk rating, they need to revisit those information. So if let's say while onboarding the, let's say currently I'm onboarding the Barclays, okay, Barclays is a client for one of the different investment banks. So while onboarding the Barclays, I have gathered all the information. I have uploaded the required documents in the tool. and the tool have calculate the risk rating. Let's say the risk rating of the tool was 3 years in onboarding process. So in periodic review, regular review, after the 3 years, we need to revisit those information. Like whatever we had updated in client onboarding, we need to recheck those information. If those information is correct or updated as of now, and we need to recollect all the documents which are validity within 1 year. Okay. So for any client, if the client is low risk, we need to revisit that client in every 3 years. We need to uh, revalidate the information which is updated in the tool. We need to recollect all the documents. And for medium risk, it is same. We need to revisit those clients in every 2 years. We need to recollect those information from sources, different approved sources. We need to recollect the documents and update in the KYC tool. And for high risk, it is every 1 year. So in every 1 year, we need to revisit those clients to re-perform the KYC. Okay. So for this process, the investment bank calls it as periodic review, regular review process. So when you will be working in MNC or in any investment banks, you will see there are different KYC processes. Like if they are hiring for, sometimes they are hiring for onboarding process, sometimes they are hiring for regular reviews, sometimes they are hiring for event-driven review or for offboarding as well. Okay, so these are the different KYC processes. And the third one is event-driven review. So in this process, let's say I have onboarded the Barclays and the risk rating of that client is low. Okay, and the refresh will happen in every 3 years. But let's say after 1 year, there are significant changes in the Barclays ownership structure. Like ownership has been changed, or you can say directors have been changed, or there are adverse media like any regulators have fined the Barclays in adverse news in because of failing the few financial compliances. That's the reason we call it as an event-driven review. In this review, we need to refresh that client, even though it's low risk and the refresh cycle is in 3 years. But if there are changes in ownership or any adverse media in those Barclays, then we need to revisit that client. And we need to re-perform the KYC. We need to recollect all the information and update the KYC tool with updated documents. Okay. And the fourth one is offboarding. In this, it is very simple. If the transaction is completed and any investment bank feels that we will be not doing any further transaction on this client, then they simply close that client or customer account. For that, there are no documents required. Just the investment bank or MNC will have the approval from the sales team, the front team, and then they will directly close that account if the transaction is already completed and the transaction is not ongoing. Okay. Let's move on to next slide. Now, what is entity type? So the first step in performing the KYC to identify the correct entity type. So let's say you are doing KYC on one of the company. Okay. So before doing KYC, you need to identify what is the entity type of this client, because as per the different entity type, you need to collect the different requirements or different documents. So in KYC, based on the entity type only, and yes, so based on the entity type only, you need to collect the different attributes or different requirements, or you can say different documents. Let me show you that as well. So here are the different yes. So here are the different types of entities like regulated entity, listed entity, government entity, fund entity type, charities, the trust, LLP, the LP entity, SOE, private entity. So these are the different entity types. So while doing KYC in the tool, you will have different drop downs where this entity types will be listed, and it's same across you can say 90% of the investment bank. In 90% of the investment bank, you will see this entity types only, and in few investment, you will see uh, more entity types, which is the subcategory of this. So you will have this regulated entity type listed, and based on the entity type, you need to collect different requirements. You need to collect different documents from public sources, from paid sources, from registries, regulations, and exchanges. So it all depends on the entity type. That's the reason in KYC, the first step is to identify the correct entity type. And based on that, you will collect the information. Okay. So let's go one by one now. So what are the entity types? So these are the different entity types: private limited, regulated, government, SOE, public listed, investment fund, trust, limited partnership, limited liability partnership, charities. Okay. Team, if you are not understanding anything, any point, then do let us know.
So these all are the entities. So I just wanted to know, a private limited entity can be regulated entity.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yes,
Like a private limited entity can be a regulated entity, right? So
yes,
what will
correct.
be the most common entity that we will be dealing with that is regulated?
That is private entity because all the private
Okay.
companies will not be regulated. Only the private
Okay.
companies who are in the financial market, who are doing any financial transaction, those will be regulated only. Okay.
Okay.
So in India, let's take the example of Paytm. Paytm is doing providing some financial services. So it will be regulated by SEBI. So only those companies which are providing any financial services, those will be regulated. Okay. If those are not providing any financial services, then those will be not regulated by any financial regulators like SEBI or RBI. So we can trade those companies as private companies. And don't worry, we have on this 25 page the classification like how to identify the entity type. If it's regulated, then regulated. So there are different criteria. And based on this, you will be able to select the correct entity type. So don't get confused in this. Okay.
All right.
Okay. So let's go the entity type one by one. So what is private limited company? Anyone? Okay. So private limited company is a type of company that is privately held, meaning that the shares of the company is not traded on any stock exchange. Like in India, we have stock exchange, Bombay Stock Exchange, National Stock Exchange, or for UK it's London. For Australia, it's the Australian Stock Exchange. So if the shares of the company is not listed on the stock exchange, then we call it as a private limited company. And generally, it is owned by the very small group of investors, like the founder or the investors who have invested in the private limited company. Those are only the shareholders or owners of that private company. Okay. If the company is listed, let's say if any company is listed on Bombay Stock Exchange, National Stock Exchange, it means those are listed companies. Shares are publicly listed, anyone can buy the shares from the stock exchange. So those are listed, those are not private company. So the primary difference is that only that the shares of the company is privately held, which is which are not available for public to buy from any public market or from any stock exchange. Some key features of the private limited companies are limited liability. Shareholders in a PLC have limited liability, which means they are not liable for their investment in the company, or you can say their personal assets are protected from this any lawsuits. If any lawsuits, if anyone files any legal actions on the private company, and those legal actions or the any lawsuit will not impact the shareholders in their personal assets. Those personal assets are secured, which means the personal assets of the shareholders, the private companies are totally different. No one can touch those personal assets, even though if company has done any fraudulent activity or anything. No public shareholding, as I have told you earlier, that the shares are the privately held, which means the shares will not be sorry, will not be available in the public market. Shareholders restrictions. PLCs typically have restrictions on the transfer of shares. So in the transfer the shares, they have some restrictions on the transfer of shares. They might need to take approval from the founder or from the management team and so on. But in the on the other hand, the companies which are listed on stock exchange, they can those investors can easily sell their stock in the stock exchange. Anyone can buy that. So that's the primary difference. Okay, let's move on to the documents part of the private limited company. Okay, so the main documents in private limited company. It is required to us to know what are the main documents in private limited company. Because in the KYC, when you will be doing KYC on any private limited company, then you should know what documents can be available for the private limited company. Let's see, let's say you're doing a KYC on private limited company, and from someone you get to know that you need to identify the you need to collect the trust deed. Now, in the private limited companies, the main documents are not trust deed. You will not find the trust deed with the private limited company. That's the reason you should know what are the main documents in the private limited company, like what documents you can get from public sources or from any website. If the document, let's say the trust deed, is not for the private company, then there is no point for finding the trust deed from public sources or from any registry. So you should know what documents can be available for private limited companies, and you will search for those documents only. Okay. So in the private limited companies, the main document is memorandum of association. So MOA, you don't need to know what is MOA. You just remember that MOA is the main document in private limited company, because while doing KYC in private limited companies, you may have the requirement to find out the MOA to collect the memorandum of association. So you need to
Where
collect
will
that.
we find it?
Yes. So we will provide you that sources as well once we do the KYC in the private limited company. So we will give you sources, like from which sources you can collect all this information. Okay. But the major the what we call it, the main source of collecting the MOA is trade registry. Okay.
Okay, state registry.
Trade registry, the commercial registry.
Okay.
Okay. let's say you are doing a KYC on UK company's house. Sorry, you are doing KYC on UK company, a company which is incorporated in United Kingdom. You are doing KYC on that. Okay. So for UK, if you are doing KYC in UK, so this is the source list of the registries, the regulation, the exchanges for the all the countries. Okay. So you will get this from your investment bank whenever you will be doing KYC. They will provide you this as well. So I'll just search the United Kingdom because I am doing KYC on UK entities. Okay, so I'll just select this. Here you will get the all the list of different registries, regulation, exchanges for UK only, United Kingdom. Now this is the trade registry. I'll just copy this URL, this link. I'll copy this. I'll go to the browser. It's not working. Okay, so I'll just paste the URL, the trade registry URL. So this is the trade registry of United Kingdom, which means all the companies will have to be registered on the UK register. So for each country, there are the different registries where before starting any private company, they have to register on those registries. So it's a regulatory requirement. So this is the registry for UK, and we call it as the UK Companies House. Companies House. Okay. Now let's search the any entity, any private entity here. Search. Okay. So let's say you are doing KYC on this. Let's say you are doing KYC on this Shahi Limited. This is the company name. So in the UK Companies House, you will get that MOA, the all the documents which is required for private limited company. If you go to the filing history, here are the different documents are listed. So in this company, they have listed only two documents: the incorporation and the registered office change address. So you may find the MOA or AOA in this document as well, the incorporation document. Sometimes it's available, sometimes it's not. Okay, so it's not available here. Let's check another example. Sometimes the documents are not available on the company's house, so you need to find out from other sources, and we will provide you those sources as well, like company registry. Yes.
Will we found MOA for a big company as well? There will be MOA for big companies as well.
Yes. So let's search the Barclays. That's Barclays PLC. If you open here, if you go to the filing history, so there are a lot of documents are listed for this company, correct? There are more than 10 pages. So here, just click on the incorporation. And here are the documents, the MOA and AOA. Okay, so once you open this is the AOA of Barclays PLC. So in company's house, you will get all the documents required to perform the KYC. And if it's not in company's house, then you need to source from other sources. Okay, let's go back to the slide. Same for AOA. It's the document for the private limited company only. And if the requirement is to collect the AOA, then you can collect from the company's house or from any other sources. And for specific to these documents, you don't require to know like what is this or why it is required. It's just the regulatory requirement to collect the MOA or AOA. So just don't get stressed on this. The share certificate. Share certificates are nothing but it represent the ownership of the private limited company. So in share certificate, you will get the names of the shareholders, the names of the owners, and how much percentage they own the shares. That's it. So let's say you have started one private company. You are doing KYC in private company, and you have the requirement to collect the ownership or shareholders. Then you may need to collect the share certificate to find out the ownership. So sometimes the like I would say the 100% of the cases you will not find share certificate publicly. It's not available publicly. You will not find share certificate on any website or any registry or any regulation. If it's a requirement, then you need to collect it from the direct client. You may reach out to the client by the email, or you can reach out to the sales team. As per the different investment, they follow different processes to collect the documents from the customer. Either you can reach out to the direct client, or you can reach out to the sales team or the front team, and then they will reach out to the client to collect this share certificate for the ownership. But it's not like that. The ownership will only be available in the share certificate. There are other documents as well where you will find the ownership, like the annual report or the registries. So in registries as well, the owners are mentioned, the shareholders are mentioned. So you can go to the public sources first to collect the different requirements. And if it's not available on the public sources, then the last source is to go to the client to perform the outreach. Outreach is nothing but to get the data from the end client only. So if you are doing KYC on Barclays PLC, and if you are not able to find any information from public sources, then you will do outreach, which means you will collect the information from directly Barclays by sending the email or by the KYC tool. Okay. The register of shareholders is similar type of share certificate. In this as well, you will get the names of shareholders along with other details like the address of the shareholder, the date of birth of the shareholders, and what type of shares they are holding. Similar type of requirements will be here. Information will be in this share certificate and register of shareholders. Now, the main document for the private limited company is financial statements. So in each and every company, you will need to collect this document, the financial statements, which is nothing but the annual account, annual report, or annual return. In that document, you will see the financial performance of the company. It will have the ownership, the shareholders' name of the company. You will get the information of business industry or the address as well. So like most of the information you will get from the annual report, from the financial statement of the company. So that's the reason for each private limited company, you need to find this financial statement. Okay.
Even after collecting the MOI, we still require this financial statement, right?
Yes, correct. Let me show you one more document. Just give me a moment. Let me know once my screen is visible. Is it visible? Adrit, Neha, Divya?
It is visible.
Okay.
Yeah, it is visible.
Yes. So let's say you are doing KYC on the private limited company. So we'll give you what requirements or what documents or what information is required for the private company. So these are the different attributes, or you can see the information which is required while doing KYC in the private company. So you need to verify legal name. All these are the different information. So under constitutional documents, it is required for only for high risk. And under constitutional document, the account, the a certificate of incorporation or memorandum of association or article of association. So those are required only for high risk cases. So in you can say in 90% of the investment banks, So you need to collect this different types of requirements for private limited companies as per the risk rating. So it is required only for high risk, source of wealth required for high risk. This is for high risk and high risk. So as per the risk rating, you need to collect the different requirements for the private limited company. So if you are doing a KYC on the private limited company, you need to collect this information as per the risk rating. And these are the different sources, like from where you can collect this in specific this attribute. So for the legal name, you can collect it from V1 source and V2 source. What comes under V1 or V2? It is mentioned on the last page. So under V1 it comes company registry, certificate of incorporation, trust deed, LP, LLP agreement, MOA, AOA. So you can collect the legal name from these sources. First, you can collect it from company registry. If you are not able to find the company registry, then you will go to this source, then this, all this. Why hierarchy wise? Now let's say if you are not able to find the company name from this sources, then you can go to this sources as well. Because the company name, you can collect the legal name from V1 or V2 sources. So that's how it is structured. So in different companies, you will have this type of different sources and different types of information, like from where to collect those information. Okay. So don't get stressed out, like where to collect, how to collect, what documents will be required. So everything will be given to you when you will be doing practice test cases as per the different entity types. Okay. Now, the main parties in the private limited company, like what parties or which all are the parties who are involved in the private companies, and it's required to perform the KYC. Because in KYC, you will need to collect this information to perform the KYC to complete the KYC. So first comes the shareholders. So in private companies, the shareholders are the owners of the company. That's it. Just remember this. These shareholders are the owners of the company. So let's say I have started a private company. So I'll be the founder and I'll own all the 100% of the shares, which means I'm the shareholder, or you can say the owner of the private company. But if I have started a private company with one of my friends by investing 50-50 amount, and we will own the half of the investment. I'll own the half of the shares of the private company, and half of the shares will be owned by one of my friends. In that scenario, we both will be called as the shareholders or owners, and we will own the 50% each shares. Like I'll own the 50% share, and my friend who have invested along with me, that friend will own the 50% of the shares. So shareholders are nothing but the owners of the company. That's it. So while doing KYC, you need to connect the shareholders as well. Like who are the owners of the private company? That's the main requirement in doing the KYC. Now, second comes the board of directors. So the board of directors is responsible for the overall governance of the company, like making the decisions in the company's strategic direction, or you can say the operations. So the board of directors are the responsible for all these different departments. Okay. Any doubt in this? Okay. The third one is the managing director or CEO. So again, in the KYC, you need to collect the managing director or CEO of the company as well. So you will need to find this information from different sources. I think if you are not getting anything, then please let us know. If you have any doubt, then just speak. Adrij, Divya, Neha. Are you understanding this correct?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yes.
So while doing KYC in the private companies, you need to collect the CEO directors as well. Who is the managing director? Who is the CEO? Because they are the head of the management team. They are responsible for day-to-day operations. That's the reason you need to collect the CEO, managing director as well. And the CEO or the managing director reports to the board of directors only because they are the ones who appoint this CEO, managing director. Now the fourth one is the executive management team. Okay, so while doing KYC, along with collecting the board of director or CEO, you also need to collect the executive management team. You can see what are the roles and responsibilities of different direct board of directors, managing director, CEO, executive team. So they are just into the implementing of different object strategy. They will implement different strategies or different, you can say, uh, uh, plan to achieve the private company's goal. Like whatever the goal of the private company to make it profitable, to grow. So they are the executive management is the one who makes those strategies, and they will be reporting to the CEO. So that's how hierarchy goes. The last level is the employee, then the department heads, like marketing department head, then HR or the operations head or the sales team head, and then comes to the executive management team who will implement the different strategies to achieve the goal of the organization. Then it will report to the managing director, CEO, and then this team will report to the board of directors. And the top there is the shareholders. So that's how hierarchy goes. They will introduce different strategies. They will give it to the department heads. Then department heads will ensure that those strategies are implemented, and they will get it done from the employees at all levels. So that's how hierarchy goes for the private limited companies. Now let's